up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Meaning of Podcast. I am Ace.
This is RB3.
And this is the podcast where we talk about your favorite film directors and the deeper meaning within their films. And once again, we are joined by a guest. Please welcome Mr. Alex Marzoña.
Hey.
Marzoña, don't forget that.
Hey.
Thank you for having me on. It's awesome to be here.
Yeah,
man. As I was saying before, I'm at the big boys table now.
Big boys table.
After being in the booth.
Yeah,
from Collider Live.
Yeah.
Collider Live's very own, Alex Marzoña.
So I'm very happy to be here.
The few times I've tuned into Collider Live, no, I'm kidding. I've always
said what he said, he never watches Collider Live. That's what he just said.
I always see you in the booth, and I'm disappointed. Yeah. I'm like, this guy he's young, he's youthful, he has energy, he has thoughts and opinions. He actually watches a lot of movies.
Yeah,
I mean,
you watch so many movies, man.
We gotta get people on the mic that know their stuff, man, and you know your stuff. So I'm excited. I'm genuinely happy to have you on.
It'll be fun.
Yeah,
I'm excited.
Absolutely. So you chose a director. We usually allow our guests to choose a director, and you chose a director that is on the come up. To say the least, especially coming off all those Oscar nominations. Unfortunately, only one win, but still a ton of nominations, and that is Yorgos Lanthimos, the Greek legend, the Greek freak.
The Greek
I mean, it's considering his movies.
He's a freaky motherfucker.
He's definitely a freaky dude, man. Because when you go, in preparation for this episode, you go kind of like on a binge of these directors. Aronofsky really just like, it kind of affects you like mentally, like emotionally. Aronofsky hurt me. I felt like
our first
episode. That was super rough.
I feel like I couldn't communicate with humans anymore.
It was especially because it was our first episode, so we felt like we had to watch everything.
We watched like, he has like 10 movies, right?
Yeah.
We watched all 10. And I was like, what is life? What is this purpose? What is humanity? And I was just gone, dude.
Oh,
so
man.
This one hurt me too, though.
A little bit.
It hurt me because I was talking to my roommates, and I couldn't form sentences because he just disturbed me so much. So obviously we're going to get into that, and we're going to get into a little bit of my controversial takes on certain movies, but we'll see. Once again, guys, last week we always appreciate your comments on the YouTube channel. Obviously, if you're listening to us on SoundCloud, let us know what you think of that. If you're listening to us on Collider Factory on the iTunes feed, go over to our YouTube channel. It's called Spotify. First Cut. And you can, or Spotify, you can go over to our YouTube channel, First Cut, and let us know in the comment section down below what you think of this episode, what you think of our guests, what you think of our conversation, and about Yorgos Lanthimos and his movies in general. So we appreciate those comments, and I know last week we had a few of those. We talked about Avatar: The Last Airbender, just because we kind of do it in the past. I kind of want to bring
back to comments. Okay, that's good, man. That's a good time.
At least to give a few appropriate shout outs to a few people who left comments on the Avatar: The Last Airbender episode where we have Miss Wendy Lee joined us.
Wendy.
And it was a lot of fun, man. So let's read this comment from Malk2392 says The Legend of Korra was great by any standard, but the standard set by the original. The first is almost like a 10, while Korra is a solid 8. Sure, I appreciate that. I don't know if you have any thoughts on Avatar: The Last Airbender.
I haven't seen any of them.
Dang.
I know.
Come on, guys.
Last Airbender's dope.
And then Edmund Zippo says, great episode, guys. Very happy to see Wendy on camera, and makes me want to go back and rewatch the show and get into Korra because I stopped watching after 2 seasons. Yes, Edmund, go back and watch Korra. I really highly recommend the show. I know a lot of people fell off. I know a lot of people were disappointed with season 2, but trust me, it goes into deeper places that is absolutely amazing.
Korra just had a birthday too, right?
Korra, my dog had a birthday yesterday.
Happy birthday.
And I saw, bro, I got thoughts. I saw the movie at the same time I saw The Lobster. And I just got to say, man, I'm coming in hot with the hot takes about Mr. Yorgos and his weird fascination with animal abuse. And I'm a big animal lover. I guess, I mean...
Ace is going to get...
We always go in chronological order, so I'm not going to break the norm. But obviously, Yorgos Lanthimos is a Greek filmmaker.
Before we leave the comments, I want to say salute to my boy Steven Alvarez. He left a comment this week, too. He was a day one supporter. He was my roommate back when I was at CSUN.
Nice.
And then he actually left the highest comment on the first day I joined Schmoes. and he had like the most likes because he was saying like congratulations, you know what I mean?
Oh,
So
that's awesome.
salute to Steven Alvarez. Sorry to interrupt.
Hey,
All good. Let's start out with his first feature film listed on his IMDb, and that is 2001's My Best Friend.
Yeah, I mean,
Alex, we look to you as the Yorgos expert.
oh gosh, I
Tell
only
us
started
about
on Dogtooth.
My Best Friend.
right.
I know nothing about it. It's probably about his best friend.
Yeah.
Just
I don't know. I think honestly, his filmography really kicks off with Dog.
I couldn't really
Dogtooth.
find that.
Yeah, these movies. I mean, My Best Friend is this Cananetta. I saw like IMDb. I also include that one in the video. I couldn't find either of these. Like,
It was hard enough
anywhere.
to find Dogtooth.
Yeah.
All right,
But,
so for all the fans of My Best Friend and Canetta, apologies.
so sorry.
I'm sorry. We're
We're
doing
so
our best.
sorry.
I saw IMDb had the Canetta thing in like their little director's trademark video of him, but I looked on Amazon, Netflix. I got Canopy. I did everything, man. I couldn't find it.
In 2009, we have Dogtooth.
Yes.
It is not a long movie. It is kind of a thriller. Tell us about this movie, Mr. Alex. What are your thoughts on this movie? And kind of before we do that, I can't believe I haven't done this. Your general thoughts on why you chose Yorgos Lanthimos and kind of your general thoughts on him as a director and any thoughts on that. I don't know if are you aspiring to be a filmmaker as well? Or?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
I like just like I kind of wanted to be an actor before.
Sure.
I
very
still
talented.
kind of want to.
Very talented
but
musician, though.
yeah, thank you. Yeah, music is my number one goal, and the main reason why I wanted to talk about him is just because I think when we were originally talking about which director to do back in November, The Favorite was coming out at that time.
Yeah.
And so I was like super hyped on it. And now we're finally here and we're doing it.
Yeah.
I just loved like one of the main things I first saw The Lobster in theaters back in 2016 and I just loved how freaking insane it got and just how he just drops you into this world and expects you to catch up. And I noticed that he does that a lot, except for The Favorite, obviously, is just kind of, that's his most normal movie.
Yeah, it's most accessible.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So,
Great.
yeah, that's why I like him.
Let me know a little bit about Dogtooth, just general thoughts on the movie and your initial thoughts when you first saw it.
Yeah, so I watched this, and it was, it took a while to get into, as most of his movies.
Right.
They start off slow, as I said, like they just drop you into it, and with like kind of no context, and you just find things out later. And I think that's a really effective storytelling device, just because it's like just jump in the deep end, and here we are.
Right.
Yeah, so basically there's 3 kids who have not seen the outside world, and their parents are sheltering them. It seems like it's for like a scientific.
It seems they imply it's like
imply-
experimentation.
Yeah. And throughout the movie, the parents, their whole like the curtain starts to fall.
Yeah. The illusion starts to break.
Yes.
Yeah. I guess the curtain. I think the curtain's a good analogy.
And basically things go crazy from there.
Yeah. I mean, I this is the movie. I also literally saw this movie this morning too.
Yeah.
So like, I mean, literally it's a story about like you know those kids that I don't know if there was a documentary that came out pretty recently. I think it was called the Wolf Pack. It was a documentary about those kids that are like locked
trapped.
in. Yeah, they're trapped in their parents' apartment for like super long time. There's also another case of that, but I think with Yorgos' like weird, like kind of quirky sensibility, he makes it a lot more of an extreme example of like what can happen when people are like isolated for that long. What do you think of this movie though, Alex? I mean, I personally really dug it, but
yeah, I liked it a lot.
Yeah,
it's just super weird, and just anything that like makes me, because I try to have no expectations going in, and if or at least minimal expectations, and if I'm completely in a different place than I was at the beginning of the movie, like mentally, then I think that's a success.
Right.
From the script, the director, and just overall. So.
Yeah, I feel like Yorgos, obviously he has certain elements that are featured in every single one of his films, part of that is like RB3 just said, the word quirky is used a lot, but that's kind of the best word to describe it. The quirky, but also the dark, like he deals with dark humor is the best way to describe it, the dark, quirky humor. But at the same time, Yorgos always has something to say as far as on a thematic scale. And that's kind of what we do on The Meaning Of. I mean, that's called The Meaning Of because we try to figure out thematically the kind of stuff that he wants to talk about. What do you think that is for Dogtooth?
I think, well, in general, it's like his dialogue with and human interaction is just so like truncated. And in Dogtooth, there's a lot of examples with that. I remember that conversation with the boss, and they're just talking about which option for the this product,
right?
And then all of a sudden they're talking about the wife, and then right away they're going back to the manual thing. I just like it. He's trying to get to the very base level of human interaction, and very just kind of break it down in a like, hey, this is how we actually talk, and
it's intended to be like natural, like it's intended to be like how people realistically talk, but it's delivered in such like an awkward and very like and very like stoic way that it's very hard to read. This movie's crazy. I mean, it was nominated for the Academy Award for Best Foreign Film the year it came out. Or the year it was, I guess, released in theaters in the United States in 2011, or was nominated in 2000. It came out in 2010 in the United States and was nominated in 2011 Oscars. The whole analogy is supposed to be like, and they explain it halfway through the movie, which I think is very like you said, like you don't really understand what's going on until way later. Like halfway through the movie, they use the metaphor of like, oh, kids don't leave the house until your dog tooth falls out. And how that's like, in real life, that's a lie. You don't really have a dog tooth. But this movie extends that metaphor into making it like an actual concept. And I think it deals with a lot. I think it's about, kind of the fear of being a parent to some extent. I know I think that, a lot of this movie deals with how overprotective parents can be, how overprotective, like like literally holding their kids hostage. And how that kind of affects like these teenagers. I mean, these teenagers, they're like kids basically, and they have like such arrested development. They have like such, every single one of them do very childish things. They all like play with like toys. They have like one toy. They have like
the hair.
Right, exactly.
The headband.
Right, the headband. But then things like that. The whole thing of the movie is that there's two girls and a boy, but for the boy, the father of the household brings in like this outside girl to like come in and like sleep with him basically, but then being the outside force that comes into the house, everybody's like, oh, we really like seeing her, like when she comes over for just like literally a couple hours, but then she begins to like get sexually frustrated with this dude, so she starts experimenting with the other daughter.
And bribing.
You're right. And it just becomes a whole like cycle, whole thing. So it's also about like the coming of age of like sexuality, which I think sexuality is by no means a running theme throughout all of his movies.
It is, for sure.
Yeah, and I think this really establishes, especially the way the sex scenes are shot, is very staccato, like very like matter of fact.
Yeah,
like,
there's like a process of taking off. He shows the whole process of taking off the clothes.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm gonna like mount you now.
Right.
It's like, it's very
right.
particular.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, obviously that's a thing that stands out in all his movies. All his movies sort of deal with, like you said, human interaction and human social skills, right? I mean, obviously that The Lobster stands out to me.
Right.
The Favorite stands out to me when it comes to the killing of a sacred deer.
Yeah.
Just as he's known for his very particular dialogue, I feel like. What do you guys feel like? What stands out and what makes it so interesting and fascinating to people?
Well, I think I saw an interview of him once. He said he doesn't really try to make it like that. I mean, he says he like shoots the scene and the actors just say it how they say it. Yeah.
Because I saw another interview where Colin Farrell said he read the script and he said the dialogue was clearly weird.
Yeah.
Like he could feel like he said the word off center, which I felt like was such a great way to nail it.
Right,
where he's
right,
like
right.
He's like not too far to the right, not too far to the like just off center. His dialogue. I mean.
Well, I think
explains a lot.
I think I was gonna say I think being an actor, reading the dialogue on page, it's gonna be off center.
Yeah.
So you're gonna perform it more off center.
Yeah.
As you do the performance. And I think I think that's what Largos was referring to. Like his actors just bring the awkwardness to it more or less, and
they kind of know what movie they're in.
Right, and they know who he is as a director. I'm sure. I mean, and obviously when you work with somebody on set, a lot of times the vibe of the set often translates on screen too. They probably have, probably on set intentionally, it probably is a more like awkward, like kind of thing, which I think really adds to the appeal of his movies. And
the appeal to nail down certain actors. That's to me, that's always the most fascinating. I mean, because I'm a broad picture kind of guy, so I don't necessarily just look at the movie. I look at like why someone like a Colin Farrell wants to keep working with Yorgos Lanthimos, or why someone like Olivia Colman, who also makes appearances, or Rachel Weisz, who I think Rachel Weisz is one of the greatest actresses working right now. I think she's so underrated. I think she's incredible. And why someone like her wants to work with someone like a Yorgos Lanthimos, especially someone like who obviously is foreign, doesn't really have a huge recognition, maybe besides the startup with Dogtooth, but not a director that is absolutely pulling in actors. It's a natural progression of actors wanting to work with him. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Where it's like they go out of the way to work with Yorgos because of his interaction with his actors and the performances he gets out of them. Considering the fact, this all leads to a point, how Coleman literally just won the Oscar based off Yorgos' directing style towards his actors. And that's something that's a continuing point in all his movies, is the performances are amazing. Have you guys seen The Alps or Alps?
I did watch it.
Okay, great.
It was just kind of background.
Sure.
But it's basically about this nurse who's part of a kind of group who they, whenever someone dies, like they offer their services to a family to basically play that person who died for them, so the family can relive their favorite memories and make the grieving process easier. So the older sister in Dogtooth plays the nurse, the one that looks like Ashley Victoria Robinson. I don't know if you guys noticed that.
I didn't catch that.
Yeah, she totally looked like her to me. And she she's not allowed to get this one girl, or to portray this one girl for this family, and so she does it on her own. Gets kicked out of the group, and it just goes crazier from there. Because she wants to. She's so like shit. What am I trying to say? She's so focused on trying to be part of something.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's the running theme throughout a lot of Yorgos' movie, is about the constraints that society puts on somebody and how characters like are trying to escape from that. I think that's very present all throughout Dogtooth, even leading up into the conclusion. I think is very present in this movie, of course. I mean, this is a rule. I mean, I have the rules pulled up here. There's like 15 rules they establish about this organization. They're called the Alps. Like that's what the group is, and they have all of these different pieces, checklists. But it's basically like basic societal rules. Like, but it's the same way as in Dogtooth, where the house is like a metaphor for the overall constraint of the world and how that constraint can lead us to go crazy. This movie's about how the constraints of the world kind of put us in these like in search of this main character looking for an escape from reality to join a group, how the constraints of being in a group and being in that is so devastating that you just want to escape, that you want to rebel. And I think that's something that also is very present throughout The Lobster as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's what I take from this movie. I didn't get to finish it all the way, but it's a lot of people don't have this as highly ranked on their Yorgos on their list. List. Do you think this is one of your favorites or one of your?
Nah, it wasn't as weird for me.
Yeah,
like it seemed like it was in a normal world. It's just that it was just the people were weird, not the world essentially.
Right.
Speaking of weird, The Lobster, a movie that's currently on Netflix and that I just saw.
Oh, okay.
And
First time seeing it?
It was my first time seeing it. Yeah, most of these are besides The Favorite, I didn't see in theaters. The Favorite I did see in theaters. I went out of my way to go see that.
Did you see it again for this? No. Okay.
I mean, it was recent though, man.
Yeah, no. I mean, I don't even think. Well, I was gonna say like, how did you? Because I didn't. Is it on like renting or?
I think you can buy it.
Okay. Yeah. I can't afford to buy anything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No
I can
way.
rent. I can't buy. You know.
But yeah, this is a movie that made waves for sure when it comes to Yorgos. If anything, this is a movie that kind of put his name on the map when it comes to more
America.
A general movie-going audience or American audience. And it stars Colin Farrell. And let me try to set up the world. But essentially the world is everyone has to be in couples. They have to be in a relationship.
Yep.
And if they're not, they're sent to this hotel where they're trying to find their mate. And if they don't find their mate in 44 days or something like that.
45, yeah.
45 days, they get turned into an animal for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, you can extend your days at the hotel by killing loners is what they call them, that live out in the woods. That's ironically right next to the hotel for some reason. That took me out of the movie, but we'll talk about that. And the more loners you kill, the more days you're extended. So most of the time, it's people trying to find a relationship and forcing relationships, and people at the same time trying to figure out what kind of animal they want to be. It's a weird, obviously it's very weird. It's a very odd concept.
Right.
And it starts out with a voiceover by Rachel Weisz that immediately kind of puts you inside the world because she's, like we just talked about dialogue.
Staccato,
she talks so weird and she's
monotone.
What he told me that he found it in a hotel and he stayed there for 2 days. She talks very odd, which stands out. I love it too. Yeah. I'm immediately like, I'm in. I love Rachel Weisz. Just hearing her voice, I'm like, yes, I believe. But this, I just kind of want to hear overall takes. Obviously, we can talk about specific moments since I just saw this movie, but overall takes on this movie. Most people love it. Is that you, Alex?
Yeah,
you love it?
I love it. It's I watched it the other night. I rewatched it. It's freaking hilarious. I thought there's so many good one-liners that only can work in this kind of movie. I just love the story. It's really cool. The world they build. The acting, of course, is great. And the last scene also. I really love that. Right. Just the ambiguousness. That's a trademark I feel like through all of his films. Ambiguous ending. Something we haven't touched on yet. I personally really dig this movie, man. When I first saw it, I've always been disappointed. The first half to me is comparatively better than the second half of this movie. For me, it switches in a very weird, interesting way, but. I mean, looking and reevaluating this movie again, for the sake of this podcast, I actually really came away with some really, I really thought it was some really dope stuff that they were saying in this movie. I thought it was very particular in its message, and I think it was dope.
Let's do it. Let's get right into what are the major themes in this movie. What does this movie talk about? What is it an analogy for?
Right. I mean, I think it's an analogy for a lot of things. I mean, I think personally,
obviously relationships, right?
Yeah, relationships. The construct of love. Is love actually a construct, or is it a forced manipulative thing that society? Again, it's the whole idea of society making you choose love, and particularly in this society, they're only making you choose two kinds of love: heterosexual or homosexual love, which I think speaks to the broader analogy of it being a very pro LGBTQ plus type of film, because it does give it explores in what it means to be something other than what society tells you have to be, being something that breaking the mold, and like he asked in the very beginning, was it like to be like, why can't I be bisexual? But they say they give you the most dumb reason.
Well, I kind of figured out. I personally figured out why they said no to that. It's because why he wants to and why they say no to it. It's because you have more options.
Okay, interesting.
So they want to limit. So think about it, like
make more animals.
What's his face? John C. Reilly was trying really hard with some other people, but if you have both options, you can just be like, hey, what's up, dude? Yeah. Oh, he didn't. Oh, hey, what's up, girl? Like, you have more options,
right?
Which is an easier escape out of the hotel.
Right.
I immediately like. It took me a minute because I was like, why do they say you can't be bi? And then I was like, oh, if you have both options, then it's easier to kind of pick whoever. Yeah, kind of take a cheat or a cheap way out.
Yeah, you can also read it to some extent of being a metaphor for asexuality too.
Sure.
You know, like being somebody who doesn't have any particular sexual interest in any particular gender, or somebody who I think Colin Farrell. I mean, my personal reading of the film, I think Colin Farrell might actually be asexual, but there's a subsection of being asexual called panromantic, right, where you can still feel romantic love but not be sexually interested. I mean, I don't feel like. I mean, at the end, I guess he has a thing for Rachel Weisz, but he never presents himself as like a sexually active like character or being throughout this film. So I don't know. I don't know. But what do you take from this movie, Alex? Like from a deeper meaning kind of standpoint.
Yeah, I just thought it was like it's a great metaphor for like how the society like forces love upon like you have to love and be loved, and him escaping from the hotel is just like, hey, like I'm okay with like letting love find me. But yeah, I just I thought it was a great movie.
But the one thing that kept coming up in my mind was the fact that if Rachel Weisz walked into that hotel when he walked in, game over. They would have hooked up.
They don't have the same characteristic though, right?
No, yes they do. When they're first short-sighted. I'm saying at the very beginning, if he walked in his first day and he sees Rachel Weisz and they have that instant connection of like romantic love, and right away, it's a matter of circumstance.
Yeah.
Where it's like if she was just 45 days too late, which happens to be the time when he needed to find her. Whereas like if circumstance would have happened, if she happened to be at the hotel at the same time he was, they would have and everything would have been perfect.
And that's like life.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I agree with that.
Really?
I think
you don't think they had that instant chemistry connection?
I think
they did.
I think this movie kind of denies that instant chemistry even exists. You know, I think this movie
we don't find out though. It's ambiguous.
I mean, yeah, it's ambiguous. It's ambiguous.
You don't know, man. Poke them eyes out, bruh.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, is just being I think the movie is asking the question of is love an actual thing? Is the idea of like the chemistry in our brain like an actual like thing, or is it actual concept, or is it something that society keeps impressing upon us?
Sure.
And I think the movie just says very clearly that love really doesn't exist. Like that's what I think the movie says, you know. So I think in the whole like idea of them not matching up at the same time, I think it just further extends that metaphor of like it's just a social thing, you know. It maybe isn't a love at first sight.
Interesting.
But I don't know. That's just what I take from. But Alex, what do you take from him wanting to be a lobster? Like, what do you think? What do you think
that's a whole like another conversation.
Yeah, I'm not really sure. Like, it's like lobsters are, like they're bottom feeders. I believe they're like they used to be like fed to like Australian British prisoners back in the day because they were like viewed as like the worst of the worst, and now it's weird how they're like they're kind of delicacies for like rich people or just in general. I don't really know if that plays into it, or I'm trying to think.
When he gave his reasoning, he said, and immediately when he said it, I was like, "You're crazy." He's like, "The lobster can live like 112 years," and I was like, "Why would you want to live 112 years as a lobster?" That's immediately my first thought. I would want to die right away. Kill me, please.
You want to live to 112,
bro? Not as a lobster. Like, imagine your like I kept thinking, because I'm a nerd, right? So I think of sci-fi, I think of Black Mirror, and Black Mirror always has those episodes of like your consciousness is stuck inside someone else's body or something. It's just awful, like that experience of like not being in control or being limited in control, where all you can do is this and swim around. I was like, nah, I'm good. But it brings up a kind of a fun point as far as like what animal would you choose if you had to choose to be an animal for the rest of your life until you die? And I want to ask you guys, what animal would you choose? I'm gonna start with you, Alex. What animal would you choose?
My favorite animals are koalas, so I guess I gotta go with koalas.
They sleep all
just
the
because
time.
they're just chilling, and they can get pretty fierce.
Yeah.
But people don't have hostility towards them.
Yeah, they're just cuddly and cute.
How about you, man?
I feel that, man. I think dolphins. I like dolphins.
Dolphins.
You know what I mean?
That's
they're pretty smart. They're apparently like super smart. So I just want to see what a dolphin would be like. You know.
Dang. You know what I kept thinking throughout the whole process was the fact that it's like, and it was never really clear. It was kind of clear, but once you become an animal, what they do with you? Do they transfer you to your environment? Do they keep you like around the area? That to me was confusing because we see the homegirl turn into a little pony, the mini pony, which I thought was like, who wants to be a mini pony?
His brother's a dog.
And then we see her in the background, and in the middle of the woods. I don't know if you guys caught that.
I didn't catch that.
Yeah, she's in the background and she's just roaming around. And I don't know if it's just because they just kind of were like, hey, go shoo.
Yeah.
Or like they literally put her in a cage and say, okay, we're going to take you to Little Pony Land. And they take her. Because if that's the case, it'd be like, yeah, I'll be a little pony in Little Pony Land, but I won't be a little pony in the middle of the woods.
Yeah, because in the opening scene, they have the woman driving out to a field with to kill a horse. That is
a donkey.
A donkey was with other.
Because you assume So when I saw that scene, I assumed they put you in your environment.
Yeah.
But then when I saw that, I was like, that's confusing. And then we see a random camel in the background. So it's like they made it seem like they were just like, shoo, have fun. And it's like, at least put me in the middle of the desert where camels are.
Right.
So that process kind of thought me. But when she was like, everyone chooses dogs because everyone wants to be a dog. And I'm like, I low-key kind of want to be a dog.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, I was like, if I could be in my environment, I'd be a lion, dude. You don't do shit as a lion. Lions, you can't. Everyone is like intimidated by you.
Yeah.
You just lay around all day. Like
you have to catch your own food, man.
Not really. My wife is gonna do it, bro.
Look at this
I'm a loner lion.
Oh man, look at this.
So I gotta catch my own food. They just bring the food to me, bro. Kind of like the rabbits bringing it to Rachel Weisz's
I think it works the exact opposite. Actually, I know. I think the men get the food.
I know. But I was thinking like I'll be a lion or I'll be a bird because at least I can change my environment. I can fly away.
Yeah.
So I mean, if
you're like a bird, you want to fly away.
Yeah,
you don't know where you're
You shit wherever you want to shit.
Yeah,
nobody's gonna say anything.
On top of people.
Yeah,
and if they want to kill me, I could be like, I'm gonna fly away, bro.
Unlike you're the birds in the favorite.
This is kind of the whole movie. Kind of, it's basically like an apocalypse in my opinion, as far as how horrifying that is.
Yeah,
the concept of having your consciousness inside an animal.
Some people want it though. I mean, we saw Being John Malkovich. That's a whole movie about people wanting to be inside somebody else, you know?
It's just disturbing to me. I mean, again, it depends on your environment. But the whole thing is people in this movie are going out of their way, or being, essentially they're evil because they just don't want to be an animal. They'd rather live out in the woods and run away for the rest of their lives than to be an animal. That's the whole time I was thinking it. It's like, that's how bad and awful it is to like be an animal the rest of your life. Like they're like, no, I'm just going to run my whole life.
Yeah, I fucks with a movie that the central message is that it's okay to be single. I like that. I like that as a message for a movie.
Yeah, that's kind of the whole ironic situation, right? Where it's like the people that are being hunted are the single people.
Right.
But even the single people have their own rules as far as like you have to stay single.
Yeah,
you can't hook up with anyone, which I thought that's torture as well. I gotta be honest, guys. I might be the most negative on this movie. I don't know if I like this.
Was it the dog? Did you like the dog?
You know what it is, bro? It's the dog.
Yeah, that was.
I have a line.
He holds the camera,
bro. I have a line. I really do, and I'm very open. I love dark humor. I'm cool with decapitations, with torture, with gore. Like, trust me, bro. I am very thumbs up on killing, on murder, all this stuff that I see in movies.
In movies.
Dark in movies. In real life. And sometimes in real life, you know. And I'm very cool with. Trust me, I'm not a guy who's like, oh my, no, I'm not. I'm just very much like, yeah, he got decapitated and he got like cool, good. But this, I draw a line at animal abuse. I really do. Yeah. And it's just like, and I know it was played for laughs, that scene.
Yeah.
But maybe it's because it was my dog's birthday that day. And I was just thinking of her the whole day.
Circumstances.
And I was just like, you know what? F this movie.
Yeah.
I'm good. I don't care what statement you want to make.
Do you think
if you torture a dog, I'm good, bro.
Do you think
good.
if they had...
and I know that's such a limited point of view for most people, like cinephiles like you and like all of us. We're all cinephiles. And I sound like a grandma coming out of like Wisconsin. Oh, no, they kill that dog. Like, it sounds like I'm being like such a... cheesy dude, but honestly, I do. And then the whole time I was thinking about like, what is Yorgos' deal with like animal abuse, bro?
Well, I mean, Dogtooth, they killed a cat.
Dogtooth, they killed a cat. Yeah. The Favorite, they have like weird scenes. And
the
rabbits. And then I kept thinking about like that interview I saw with, I see the Hollywood Reporter roundtable interviews. I don't know if you guys see that. But they had one with his producer. And apparently Yorgos was that scene of like the ducks running around was not going to be like a duck chasing, like a duck race. It was going to be like a human cockfighting scene. And he wanted human cockfighting. He's like, I want to see chickens get the blood and shit ripped out of them. And the producer was like, Yorgos, that's not legal.
Yeah.
This is illegal. And then the whole time I saw this movie and I'm like, yo, he low key.
Yeah.
He's kind of
there's something
off. I don't want to say F-bombs, but he's kind of effed up on the head if you're that particular about torturing animals in movies.
Do you think you...
Am I the only one who feels... Come on, guys.
I get it now that you're pointing it out.
But after that interview, because I didn't see... Think about it. I didn't see The Lobster until... And I saw The Favorite first. But then I saw the interview of the producer saying that she basically had to like plead with him to not... Like, it's illegal. You can't put human cockfighting in a movie. And then I was like, that's kind of weird, but whatever. You know, maybe he just wanted human cock... And then I see this, and I'm like... He just likes abusing. I don't.
No, I don't. He likes abusing animals.
I really do. Maybe that's just my personal feelings, man. I don't know.
I feel you.
Who fights that hard for human cockfighting after they tell you it's illegal?
Like just regular like chickens fighting.
He wanted actual chickens fighting and ripping each other.
Oh my god.
Now, what I will say.
I'm sorry, Alex. This took a dark turn. This podcast just went off the roof, but I had to make my statement. I love animals and any kind of animal abuse, even if it's played for laughs or played as a joke, I just I cannot tolerate. I'm sorry.
Oh, definitely.
Listen,
I'm sorry.
Here's what I'll say.
I sucked all the energy out of this room.
No, here's what I'll say. You're not wrong in your feelings, man, because there's a famous story with Hitchcock where he featured a film that had a dog that got exploded. I forget. It's either 39 Steps or Sabotage. But anyway, long story short, it was like a kid that carried a bomb into a train, and then like and literally he shows close up of a grandma on a train, a dog on a train, and a bomb exploded. And this was back in like 1939 or whatever. This was when he was still making British films. And the film got such a big controversy, like such a hard controversy, that he shrugged down ever killing a dog ever in one of his movies again. It wasn't until like 30 years later where he even like featured another dog like Death or whatever. So like, you're not alone in your position, Ace. Yeah. People care about dogs in movies.
Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like there's a lot of things done in this movie industry when it comes to for the good of the art, for the good of the film, for the like. You've been on set, right? You've seen how crazy directors can. You have no. Oh, okay. Well, you've been on set, RB3. You know how crazy some directors can get, and they tolerate abuse of like. Obviously, I'm talking about abuse of people as far as like how you talk to certain people is allowed because it's for the good of the art or. And that's the kind of stuff that created the Me Too movement, obviously, and I'm going off on a tangent. But that's the kind of stuff that people tolerate, like, fuck it, just kick the cat, or just do that, or whatever, like, whatever it is. Yeah. Like, it's a movie, whatever, it's human cockfighting, whatever. It's like, no, you shouldn't allow that for the good of the, I don't care if it's like, you're trying to make a message. Like, I don't give a crap. Like, you took me out of the movie, bro. Like,
that's fascinating. I mean,
I couldn't. I tried to get reeled back in, and I was like, "You're doing it with Rachel Weisz. You're reeling it back in." But I just I couldn't forgive him. I just couldn't do it.
Listen,
I just couldn't do it.
Hey, man, that poor cat and Dogtooth, the poor dog in this movie, poor chickens and the lobster, and I'm sorry, and the Favorite.
Yeah, well, they were gonna be.
Yeah,
they had to talk him out of it.
I mean, hey, man, there's been a lot of movies that have some fucked up shit in it. I feel like it's I mean, I don't know if.
And again, I'm cool with that. I like effed up stuff, but
when it's
the humans, when it's a homie getting beaten or something, I'm like, cool. But when it's an animal, I'm like, oh.
What about when Rocky and Apollo Creed are punching each other for real, like when the hits are real? Do you think that's crossing the line?
No,
that's
fine.
It's for the good of the poking film. At each other. Nah, I feel you, man. I mean, that's some hardcore stuff. If he
maybe it's just because I really am like an animal person.
Yeah, so. If he's abusing animals, that's a bad thing. But definitely don't abuse animals. But
sorry, I went off on that tangent.
Nah, I feel it, man. I mean, abusing animals is the whole title of his next film, Killing of a Sacred Deer. Yeah. Which actually have no deers in it, but unfortunately, but it's
I don't think this one has any. No, it doesn't.
No, there's no animal abuse. It's just humans torturing each other.
Yeah. I mean,
psychologically.
Let's move on. I'm sorry, guys. I ruined the lobster conversation.
I mean, did you have any thoughts on the lobster, Alex?
No. Besides that, I loved it. The cast is amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, Léa Seydoux.
That French, the French girl who's like beautiful. She was in Overlord.
She was in.
And of course,
Spectre.
Blue is the warmest color.
Yeah. Was she a Spectre or a Sky?
She was a Spectre.
Spectre,
Right.
Ariane Labed, who is actually Yorgos' wife. She was the
Which
gymnast
one
in
is
Alps. She's the maid.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
What? That's his wife?
You saw Assassin's Creed, right?
See, that makes me like him even. I'm judging so hard. Bro, I'm sorry, Yorgos. I'm judging.
Judd Apatow plays Leslie Mann and everything.
I'm not judging him because of that. I'm judging him because it's like that. How does this guy get with that French maid? Come on. There's something fishy going on there.
Yeah, she was also in Assassin's Creed. She was the main girl.
Yeah, really? Oh, nice.
Yeah, of course, Ben Whishaw, Paddington himself.
John C. Reilly.
Ben
Whishaw. I love. When I saw him, I was like, oh, he's in this movie. He's great.
Yeah.
Isn't he like a director too?
He's Q from Spectre. He's also in all the Bond films.
Oh, that's right.
Paddington.
Yeah.
Olivia Colman is in this movie.
One of my favorite scenes was, or just like favorite, Ben Whishaw. That's one of my favorite characters, just because he like chose to torture himself to be like
to be with Nosebleed Girl.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then Angeliki Papulia, the Heartless Woman.
Oh yeah,
the one
where's
that
she from?
Colin Farrell. She's the one that looks like Ashley Victoria Robinson. The one she was the lead in Dogtooth and Alps.
But where's she from?
She's Greek.
Interesting. I was trying to figure out that accent. I was like, I can't figure it out because I'm usually pretty good with accents.
She's so good in those two.
Yeah, that's the one thing that really does stand out in this movie. And you're right, the performances are incredible. Rachel Weisz is incredible. Colin Farrell's amazing in this movie. The French girl, I forgot her name already, but she's great.
No characters have their names in this movie. Which
the first,
is very fascinating.
Dogtooth, Alps, and Lobster. No, only Colin Farrell has the first name.
And John C. Reilly
in the credits.
We forgot to mention John C. Reilly.
The lisping man.
Oh, that's so funny. There's a lot of funny moments in this movie. I kind of want you to name a few of them.
Shoot, let me see. I wrote a few down.
I'll try to start it out. What was the funny? Oh yeah. It was funny, but it's also weird as hell. Was the scene where the maid just like rubs up on Colin Farrell, and he's like,
mandatory.
Stop, I can't stop it, stop it. And then she walks away, and he's like, that's so cruel, so cruel. And I was just the thought of like turning you on and then leaving you hanging is like the cruelest thing to him.
I love the when they're the don't eat alone, here's a guy eating alone, and then he chokes, and no one's there to help him. And then, here's him eating with someone, with a loved one. And then the main point of it is, she can just help him give the Heimlich maneuver.
Yeah, Heimlich maneuver. And it looks like some sexual shit.
And then don't walk around alone.
Yeah, that was pretty
just
funny.
The examples, it's just so awkward, but I loved it.
Yeah, no, that was funny. I dug that one lady who was like that older lady who was like, "Can I come in? I'll give you a blowjob. I don't have any problem with anal." I was like, "Yeah, this lady."
That's sad, dude.
But I think they were implying that like she had a husband who like either left her or died or whatever, and she had to go back. That's her second go around in that prison. That's messed up.
Yeah, there's a lot of funny. I mean, the dancing in the woods was funny.
Oh yeah.
Just
silent disco.
Yeah, that's freaking hysterical.
There's another one where Colin Farrell's in the woods and he's like checking out Rachel Weisz from afar, and some other girl's trying to like talk to him, and he's like, "Oh, I left batteries next to that tree and I don't want to lose them." And so he just leaves the conversation. It's just like, why'd you leave batteries in the forest?
Yeah, and they set it up beforehand with him being like, he thinks himself as being very good of getting out of situations with excuses. He's like, he thought he was very good at making excuses. What a good excuse. And it's like, there's batteries over there. That's like his excuse. The movie is definitely quirky and funny, and obviously John C. Reilly is funny in this movie, and every interaction with him is great. There's a lot of fun dark humor moments. Obviously, it's obviously when he's trying to hook up with the heartless, the evil girl, and he kicks the little girl.
Oh, yeah.
Trying to prove that he's evil. I thought that was pretty funny. Now we can move on to Killing of a Sacred Deer, also starring Colin Farrell, and this is also a movie that got a lot of love, especially from you, RB3.
Yeah,
you really like this movie.
I really think this movie's pretty dope, man.
Yeah.
This movie is a really great thriller. It's not as much on the comedic side, which I appreciate. I think there is comedy in it, though. I think there are like the main dude himself, Martin. I think he's a pretty funny like psychopathic character.
Is he funny because he? I don't want to say it, but
not because he looks funny. Man.
Like he makes he makes like funny faces.
Yeah, he does make funny faces. Yeah, I really dig this movie. It's probably my favorite out of his filmography. Yeah.
I remember not liking this one as much.
Oh, okay. All right. We already off to
I think it was just because it wasn't as like comedic as as The Lobster, and so I just wasn't as into it, and it was just too weird for me. I just didn't buy a lot of the characters, or just I didn't really care to really follow them, and just the ending scene or the climax where he's spinning around, that just felt like torture. Like I love scenes movies that can make me feel uncomfortable, but that just felt like too uncomfortable, and just like I didn't like watching it.
Right. Yeah, I think that's what the movie goes for, is like the max uncomfortable you can ever feel.
It's almost like maybe it's because I'm the most pessimistic on Yorgos, but it's almost like I don't know. I tried figuring out like, and I like dark movies. I really do like movies that make you feel like shit. Like I love that. That's why I loved Hereditary so much this year.
They're A24. These are all
A24. Yeah. I love those kind of movies, but I really did feel like, man, it's not even like, it's not even uncomfortable to make a point. It just feels like, I don't know, that I felt that the same way with Killing of a Sacred. And I also felt that with like I get it. It's funny because it's so dark, but it's like I don't know. I just don't
didn't enjoy the journey getting
when
to
it comes to when it comes to film. I was thinking about this on a general scale as far as film criticism and liking a movie and enjoying a movie, and those terms that are being thrown around when it comes to rating movies and grading movies and all this stuff. And I was like, do I even like any of his movies? I'm sorry, I don't think I do. I don't think I like any of his movies. I think they're really well done on a technical scale. I think they're really well done on a writing scale, but I don't like any of them. I think they're all just kind of
I mean,
it's just me.
I think that's the point, man.
You're like, bro, that's just you, bro. Shut up.
I think that's the point, is to make you feel uncomfortable, make you feel like you're squirming.
But isn't like, so is the point of Hereditary is like very dark ending, and it makes you feel
uncomfortable. But it's a horror movie. That's a horror movie. This is a thriller.
Well, I'd say it's kind of creeping into horror territory. Yeah. But it's just like with Hereditary, I loved getting to the end, and like I was 100% with it. It's just that it lost me a few times, and I just didn't want to be there.
Yeah, no, I feel like this movie goes for a very different thing. I feel like Hereditary, and I think a lot of more disturbing movies always have like the supernatural element, always have like a super, have a have moments of like flashy effects or like flashy moments of horror. This one does. I think this one leans. I call it more of a thriller because there isn't really anything like spiritual or kind of. I think it's just more of an in-house kind of thriller that depicts a very. I mean, it's based on the title of the movie is The Killing of a Sacred Deer is based on a famous story. I think it's I don't know if it's not Leviathan, but it's a very famous
Iphigenia at Aulis.
Euripides? Something like that. Yeah. But I think the whole point of that story is if I'm not getting this wrong, I don't know if I'm getting it wrong now. But I think the whole point of the story is like somebody getting like karma acted back on them for unjustly or for accidentally killing somebody, and in order to like relieve yourself of that sin, they have to kill a sacred deer, and that's kind of the decision that Colin Farrell has to make at the end. And I feel like this movie like less because I don't know, maybe it's just because like I guess the style really appealed to me. Yeah. I think the way this movie is shot is a lot more dynamic than a lot of other Yorgos' films. Like he's usually a very like staccato, like very stationary camera kind of thing. Whereas this movie is is there's a lot of zooms, there's a lot of pans, there's a lot of Dali-esque type shots, and I think it's very visually beautiful. And I think it uses its amplification of his beauty to kind of as an extended metaphor for the ugliness that's really behind this entire story. You know, I think that's kind of the whole theme of. I think, at least for me, at least how I read this movie, and I think I read it just from the opening when he's doing the open heart surgery. It's a movie about how the outside can look totally fine and be totally fine and be perfect and pristine, but then the inside could be really dark and evil and rooted. I think the movie kind of embodies that a little bit. So that's why I like the idea of me feeling uncomfortable. That's why I like the idea of me like not like having to kind of stay in it, because once it's kind of like it's portraying how we put on this act to kind of hide the truth behind ourselves instead of just being truthful from the beginning, and how that could lead to something more beneficial.
Right.
The whole idea in this movie is that Colin Farrell did surgery on the kid's Martin's dad, and accidentally killed him, but he doesn't want to take responsibility for it. He doesn't want to be honest about it. And in that the movie in and of itself is almost like being dishonest to the audience. Like it very much manipulates you to kind of deter you in every way possible, I feel like. So that's why I like it.
It kind of brings me to a kind of a slightly, and I don't want to veer too off, but a general conversation as far as these kind of movies, these movies that are a little bit oddball movies, kind of off-center movies. How do you? I don't know, man. Like if your mom is like, "Yo, is this a good movie?" What would you say?
Well, my mom would definitely not like this.
No, but if your mom asks you, it's like, "Is this a good movie?"
I would say like, it's a good movie, but I literally can tell her but my mom only likes two kind of movies: romantic comedies. And
if a stranger, let's say a stranger off the street says, "Oh, what'd you think of Killing of a Sacred Deer? Is that a good movie?"
I'll say yeah.
Because for me, it's so difficult for me to quantify and qualify quality based off what you said: good camera work, great storytelling, and good message. But if all those three things are there, but it's still not an enjoyable film, it's still like, if the message is clear and if the message, you get what they're trying to say, does that really make it a good movie? And you see what I'm saying? I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to get at. But everyone's like, it's an analogy. It's a metaphor for this huge and I get that. I get that it's a metaphor. But I still didn't like it. It's still not enjoyable in any sense. Even from a point of view as far as like making you feel certain things. Like, I don't know, man. Sometimes I feel like there's such a disconnect between these kind of movies that are like supposed to make you feel uncomfortable, and just because it does that make it good?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Like, oh, you made me uncomfortable. Oh, great.
I mean,
is that it? Because you can see that in any other movie. You could see that from terrible filmmakers, but just because he's a good filmmaker, it's good.
Well, yeah. I mean, to me, I put it as what is the filmmaker's intent, and did they execute on that intent very well, And for me, at least, this movie is intended to be uncomfortable, and it does uncomfortable very, very well. As if something like The Room, like you said, the bad movie, it does uncomfortable, but it's not trying to be uncomfortable.
Yeah, but if The Room is shot well, directed well, acted well, it'd be a completely different movie.
I'm sure.
But this movie, the core themes of the movie and the core structure of a movie is the odd thing out, but it's shot well, directed well, acted well. Like, all those three elements that are in any good movie are there. But just the core structure, themes, everything else in the movie just makes you feel uncomfortable. Does that make it good? I don't know. That's just my personal take as far as like, whoa, it made me feel very odd and so that means it was great. I was like, oh.
What do you think, Alex?
Have you guys seen Climax?
I haven't, man. I'm so excited to see that.
Yeah, because
that's probably a good example of
just how that. It's a whole pretty much straight hour of just uncomfortability, but like I just love like what was happening and how it made me feel. It was enjoyable because we had the connection to those characters that I cared to feel that uncomfortability and be okay with it. With this one, I just didn't care for the family, but
the daughter's such a brat. The daughter's a total brat.
Yeah. But just in general, like, I think it's, how well is the film built through its characters, and do I care for them? That's basically what That's what makes an uncomfortable film like that for me good.
I just this is again, I'm going off on a tangent, but once again, I still find this disconnect when it comes to art, and this when it comes to general movie going audiences, and this kind of LA world that we live in, filled with film critics who who are telling you what's good and what isn't, and sometimes the art is made to disturb, it's made to feel, like we said, uncomfortable is the word we keep using, or it's made to make you think about a certain thing. And sometimes I feel like there's this disconnect between what is good and what is bad, between the communication of critics and audiences, as far as like, this is so amazing, it's beautiful, and then the general movie going audience goes and they're like, that was trash, that was shit. Like, what was the point of that?
Yeah.
Because I feel like,
is that on critics or is that on audiences?
I think it's on critics. Because
really?
I really do. Because I feel like certain critics are just so fascinated by the high art and the very snobby kind of attitude as far as telling you like, oh, then you just didn't get it. It's like, I got it. It was just shit. I just feel like there's a disconnect. That's all I'm saying. And I feel like critics and LA people like us, like cinephiles, are like very easily kind of brush off the general movie going audience as like, oh, you just don't, like, trust me, it's great. You just don't get it. But at the same time, I'm like, I'm one of those people, to be honest. I'm very much like, I like weird movies and quirky movies. And I always tell like my family's like, oh, you guys don't get it. It's amazing. But at the same time, sometimes I find myself going like, maybe I am getting too like snobby and not realizing like, maybe this isn't as great as I think it is. And just because it's shot amazing and the acting's amazing, like The Favorite, again, I told you, The Favorite, like my mom is like, how's The Favorite? And I'm like, yo, acting, baller. Costumes, baller. Directing, baller. The movie, didn't like it. Didn't care for it. You felt the same way about The Favorite, but
yeah, initially, I mean, I
but you see what I'm saying?
But yeah, I mean,
I don't want to. I
actually
apologize to you guys because I turned this into
it's interesting
podcast.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's actually a really interesting conversation because I know because we were saying I'd be more offended if you're like if I know you didn't like high art if you didn't like good movies, you know.
Yeah.
I'd be more offended like what are you talking about? But I know what you mean. I definitely think there is. I'll say this, like, I think box office is what reflects generally what a general audience will like to some extent. I mean, obviously marketing plays a big hand to it, release dates, all that stuff plays a big hand into it. But generally speaking, the box office is the reward for what the general movie public is, you know, vibing with. But I feel like the critical esteem is, you know, I feel like you're going to need that. In order to have a good film industry that you know, has a thriving, you know, base for artistic ownership. I think you do kind of need a little bit of the critics to have the more
refined palette.
Yeah, I mean,
is it even a refined palette though?
Well, I think so. Because for me at least, I think a lot of film critics watch way more movies than the average movie-going person would normally see. And I think, you know, a lot of the great film critics obviously have a great knowledge of film throughout time, throughout the 70s, you know, throughout all of film, and have a much more broad world sense about film too. So it's a lot more accepting. I feel like if that's why I ask, is it more on the audience? If an audience isn't familiar with the kind of style of Greek filmmaking, the kind of style of, you know, per se like French noir or Italian neorealism or all these like older schools of filmmaking that these filmmakers are incorporating here, then it's going to be less appealing because they just don't know, they don't have any palette for it.
Yeah.
If you try something, let's say this, if you try something for the very first time that is, I don't know, let's say it's not sweet, it's not salt, it's not salty, but it's blue per se, like just for example, just a different taste altogether, and then that hits your tongue for the first time, you're not gonna like it. You're just not, you know. But if you keep consuming more of it, eventually, I think you'll be more on board with it. But I don't know if that's the case or not. I mean, that's why I feel like critics are an essential part of the equation when it comes to film. But I don't know. What do you think, Alex?
Yeah, I think critics get the word about these smaller movies out there.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have known about Climax if I didn't hear from critics. And I think it's just, critics, I think if they're not, audiences don't like agree with critics all the time. I don't agree with like Rotten Tomatoes, but if you look at the critics and like spot a critic that likes the same movies you do and like can find a better track record,
right,
and then you'll have a better better knowledge of what movies you should watch, because that critic has the same kind of taste as you. And I think if like general audiences can sort of do that, then they can find the good in the smaller movies, find the great in the bigger movies. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I apologize to anyone who's like, what is this? But I just feel like there's a certain disconnect between an art house film, and just because it's an art house film, people are like, boom, good, quality, amazing. It's like, is it? Like, believe me.
Well,
like,
I don't know about that though. I mean, there's plenty of art house films that gets terrible like movie reviews. Did you see The Neon Demon? I love The Neon Demon. But critics shitted on that movie, man.
Did they?
They hated it. But that is the definition of an art film.
Sure.
Here's
an example I'm gonna get into. A24.
Yeah.
A24 is my favorite movie studio right now.
Yeah.
As much as I love MCU, as much as I love all the big franchise films, A24, I will see every single A24 movie, and I will most likely like every A24 movie. So I'm trying to, let the audience know that this isn't just coming from like, I only like Aquaman. Like, no. Trust me, A24 is my favorite. My favorite movie of 2017 was A Ghost Story. A Ghost Story. Did you see A Ghost Story?
I did not. Not that.
See, that's the side
I'm saying?
I'm on your opposite side of you there.
That's what I'm saying. A Ghost Story is the most like arty art house film. Like it has 10 lines of dialogue. Like it's an arty art film.
Right.
And I loved it. And but I felt like the message they were communicating was so particularly done, was so beautifully done. And that's the word, beauty. Like I could feel it. I could feel the beauty inside the movie, through the storytelling, through the making, even if it was just an art house film that had one camera move the whole movie. And I felt it. I was like, yo, this is real. But movies like this, movies like that I'm seeing, I go on a Yorgos binge, and then I'm like, I come out and I'm like, I don't know if I liked any of his movies. I don't think I feel what he's trying to tell me. I get what he's trying to say about relationships and society and all this kind of stuff. But at the same time, and it's an A24 movie. You see what I'm saying? Like, but I don't.
Both of them.
I don't feel like him kind of poking at the audience makes it good, because I feel like that's what he does in Killing of a Sacred Deer. He's just poking at you, and in the Lobster, he's just poking at your head and just being like, ha, 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 ha. And I'm like, is this good?
Do you get it?
Yeah, and I'm like, is that? I don't know. I apologize.
Yeah. No, I get it. I mean, no, that's a great question. I mean. I mean, there's definitely a line between pretentiousness and accessibility.
What I mean. That's the word. That's a better word.
Yeah, pretentiousness. I mean, I feel like there's a lot of pretentious movies that a lot of people just won't vibe with, but I say that I feel like the diversity in cinema is good. We need some for the pretentious art house folk, and we need some for the popcorn loving Aquaman fans out there, So.
But this kind of takes me to his most recent movie, The Favorite, a movie that we both agreed that we didn't like.
Yeah.
We
that one pulls more towards the accessible side, definitely 100%.
It does, but we didn't care for the movie. Like we both agreed that it's like it's kind of overhyped in my opinion. That was just my opinion. But again, if someone like my mom asked me, I'm gonna be like, "Yo, Mom, Emma Stone was fire. Freaking Nicholas Hoult was like dropping dimes."
Yeah.
See, like these guys
forgot
killed
how good he was.
But does that make it a good? I say no. I say just because the Rachel Weisz was given an Oscar-winning performance, and I was like, "Yo, that's clutch." Does that mean it's a good? No. Just because it's shot really well. Sure. The costume design's amazing. Absolutely. Still not a good movie.
I mean. Yeah, but I wouldn't be opposed to like winning awards for the things
100 for acting. 100%. I say Rachel Weisz should have won
Best Picture over fucking half of the other nominees.
Sure,
that nominated.
I agree. Like, sure, why not? But for me, it's like when it comes to the individual standard awards, as far as like you want to nominate it for cinematography, for acting, great. They excelled in those areas. But as far as like an overall film, what did you think of this film,
I liked it a lot.
Yeah, Alex really liked it.
Get out of here, man.
I
No,
like
I'm
this a
kidding. What is it that you liked about it?
Again, it's funny. Like
Yeah.
it's
more of a comedy.
This is back.
The first hour
going
of the
back
movie
to comedy.
killed me. I was laughing so hard. Nicholas Hoult, man.
Yeah.
Every scene he was in was amazing.
I saw it back in November, and then I rewatched it again today, and I just forgot how freaking good he is in it. Just how funny, and I just really liked just the whole theme of power and just like how not men are, how they're wielding it, how these women are wielding their power, just for the love of their country or for the love of power.
Yeah, I feel
That's
like.
But do you feel that is that what makes it a good movie? Because it's women? Because it's a
I think just because
triangle?
I enjoyed
triangle?
the theme of like the whole theme of power and just who like those dynamics of who has it now and what's going on there. I just thought it was really cool. Yeah, I dug it.
What about you?
Yeah, no, I mean, I didn't really like it as much initially. But I will say though, after kind of like looking at some of Yorgos' other films and re-looking at his filmography, I could kind of see clearer what the film was going for, and I think I dug it a little. I mean, I dug the idea of it a little more. I have to watch it again to like really see what I feel. But yeah, I feel like this movie has some interesting stuff in it. Overall, I really enjoy like you said, the idea of power wielding. I think this movie is also another movie about sexuality, of course.
Yeah.
That's very much in the vein of Yorgos' other films, which is why I think this movie fits pretty perfectly into his filmography. Honestly, my biggest thing with the movie ever since I saw it has always been the cinematography. Particularly like the short angle lenses they use a lot through this movie.
It took me out when he first did the fisheye.
Yeah,
I was like, "What is this?"
Well, even shots that aren't on fisheye, like even the shots that look normal, you can very clearly tell it's like a 35 or 20 or 22 or something like that, like some very short. And usually filmmakers use that to get a more personal, to make the camera feel more personal, so it's a lot closer to the performer, so you feel a lot closer to it. I think that usually works. It usually works in a lot of broad comedies. This movie does it in a very interesting way. I was like, oh, it's interesting. I don't know if it was saying if it wanted us to be more personal with these characters. I didn't really get what it was saying. I still don't really get what it's trying to say. But it's an interesting stylistic choice, which is funny as opposed to something like Dogtooth. I read Dogtooth was shot all on like the same 50mm lens throughout the entire film. So it had the very like naturalistic kind of look to it, where this movie feels very exaggerated, feels very like in your face, So
yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of what people forget about this movie is how incredibly political it is. I love that. I love that Nicholas Hoult was really like he's a kind of an asshole in this movie and kind of the villain, but at the same time you're like, wait a minute, his goal is to stop the war, to give the peasants more opportunities. I was like, yo, he's fighting for all the right things, but he's the dick, he's the asshole, he's kind of the villain. And he's like, no, let's stop the war, let's stop killing our men and make peace with the peasants and give them more food. And I was like, yo, everything he's saying is right. I just thought that was incredibly fascinating.
And in the same way, Emma Stone is puppy-eyed. She's super ambitious, and it seems like she's fighting for the right reasons, but then in the end, she's the opposite. So they kind of mirror each other in their arcs.
Yeah, and let's talk a little bit about the feminism angle with this movie and the fact that you said RB3. It's very, very... You talked about power, you talked about sexuality, and I kind of like how those two things are played hand in hand as far as like sexuality is power, and it can be used to control people, and it can be used to manipulate opportunities and angles and all that kind of stuff, and that plays a huge heavy hand in this movie, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's essentially, it's called The Favorite because it's Rachel Weisz and Emma Stone trying to be the favorite of this queen who likes to hook up with both of them. Yeah. That's essentially as much as like you can be like, it's the conversation. It's the sex. So, I mean, that's essentially what the movie, I'm not saying it's the movie.
Yeah.
But what do you guys think about that and how it's, like you said, 3 women? It's a love triangle between 3 women. Or like when you said when we talked about it, what's that movie?
All About Eve.
All About Eve. That's right.
How that movie's all about like a girl trying to find her way into a social situation. You know, that's already established. I dug that.
Yeah,
I dug that.
What do you think of that?
Oh yeah. It's awesome. Like it's.
It makes it stand out, right?
Yes,
I personally
exactly.
feel like where it's like, oh, it's 3 women. Huh, interesting.
Yeah.
And I think that's what takes it takes certain people out of the movie is the fact that it's like it's something they've never seen before, I guess. Right. Yeah. How was your guys' theater reaction when you saw this movie? How did the theater react? My theater had reactions.
I saw. Yeah, this was the first night at the ArcLight. At the ArcLight Hollywood,
nice.
And so that
I also went to the ArcLight, but I went to Sherman Oaks.
Okay, yeah, those are like ArcLights are for like the people who love movies. And and especially the Hollywood ones on the opening night. Then those are like the real lovers, and so we were just reacting to everything, just loving every single moment of it. It's great to be in that environment.
Yeah.
With those people who love these kinds of movies that you do, these weird ass movies.
Yeah. I love it. I mean, that's why. I mean, obviously, RB3 knows throughout his years of knowing me, I'm almost ArcLight exclusive.
Oh yeah,
I'm almost and again, I'm going back to like the snobby. I'm that guy. I'm the snobby ArcLight guy.
It was the worst in Alita with this dude because there was 30 minutes of trailers before Alita, and every trailer he was like, are you fucking kidding me?
I legit get mad.
We saw the AMC because I got the A-list because I got advertising. You know,
I legit and every time I go see movies with my family, I'm pissed because I'm like, how are we paying for 45 minutes of trailers? And that's why everyone's like, oh, ArcLight is so expensive. I will pay those $5 extra for 45 less minutes of trailers. They do 3 trailers. That's it. If
popcorn is great.
Yes,
popcorn is nice at ArcLight.
I'm an ArcLight like snob, and I know that I'm a cinephile ArcLight like movies only. That's why I'm also like the Steven Spielberg. I'm
here we go.
I'm like anti-Netflix, bro. Like I'm so
we can't.
Like trust me, I'm the kind of guy who's very much like on that side of the fence as far as like theater going experience. And it
definitely
must be preserved. That's me. I want it to be preserved.
Her ArcLight gonna get their own movie pass though.
Hey, dude,
they are.
I'll be in it.
I think so.
I'll do it.
That's
the only one I'll pay for.
Something like that.
Because I haven't paid for the AMC one. But I totally get what you're saying, that they know what they're expecting. We saw Sorry to Bother You with you, and we saw it at the Hollywood ArcLight, which was another experience.
That was crazy,
But again, I brought up...
That's right, you were there,
yeah. I brought up certain...
It was super hot. That was like one of the hottest days.
It was. I brought up certain conversations with you guys about the irony of like seeing this very like pro-black art film with a bunch, dude. It was like an all-white audience.
It was all white.
It was like I told you, I was like, bro, this is all like an all-white audience. I saw like 2 black dudes.
Have you been to the Landmark?
300 people.
Oh yeah, Landmark. Literally, I was at the Landmark one time getting a ticket. And then a random white lady, like she was drunk out of her ass. Like she just walks up to me like as I'm getting the ticket. He's like, "Oh, Mister, I heard all these great stories about all these African kings and Egyptian warriors." And I'm like, "Yo, what are you talking?" And like I was mystified. I stood there for like 5 minutes listening to this.
But this brings me up. That brought me to that point where it's like the irony. I told you that freaking Boots Riley is making this, but is it even for black people? Are black people even gonna go watch this film? When you do a demographic search of Sorry to Bother You and you see it, how many of them are black dudes and how many of them are white dudes? It's like 90% white people who recommend Sorry to Oh, you should check out Sorry to Bother You. It's amazing. Who says that? White dudes. I don't know. I just think it's incredible how like Boots Riley is this big pro-black, big pro that kind of aspect, and the irony that we're seeing it in an exclusive movie theater, ArcLight Hollywood, with a very snobby crowd, snobby location, snobby white dudes loving this black movie, being like, "Oh my god, I love it! It's black," and it's just like,
well, they love it because the horses have giant dicks. That was crazy. So that's the flip side. I think of what you're saying earlier of like, can you recommend a movie? But that's a movie I had a hard time recommending because I love recommending.
It took me. I told you, I was like, I will always say, Sorry to Bother You was my favorite movie of the year. The first half of the movie was my favorite movie of the year. I was like, this movie's incredible. It's my favorite movie of the year. As soon as they do that twist, I was like, I'm good. Peace. I'm out.
That's what I was gonna say. Like, I would love to. See, I would love for like all. I would love for my. This is an example from my mom. I would love for my mom to see this pro-black, pro-union movie about black people rising up, and then the horses come. Like, okay, she's definitely not gonna like this movie.
I don't know. I really do feel, and I know we're joking about it, but I do feel like there is a disconnect when it comes to these type of movies, like A Sorry to Bother You, like a Lobster, or these kind of movies that are really kind of, they're showing you a message and you get the message, but they're doing it in such an off-putting way that it just, I don't know if it succeeds in being a good movie. I
applaud the bravery
thing.
though.
I applaud the bravery 100% of all these movies, but for me, it's always like, is this good? Like, I get what you're trying to say, but does that make it good, though?
Right.
Like, I feel like that meme of the guy looking at the butterfly, and he's like, is this good? Is this art? And it's just these type of, like, art house movies, and I don't know, man.
I like it, though. I think that's what we need in cinema. We need to have the brave voices who
100%.
Go out and
again,
make real choices. And The Favorite's a weird choice. The Favorite is a lot of weird choices with the bunnies, with this.
With the three women being the leads. Even that's a bold choice.
Yeah, no, and absolutely. I think this movie, like I said, it's a little more accessible. It shows a more optimistic view of romance, I think, at least as compared to other Yorgos' movies. Like a lot of his other movies are very much like not asexual, but very like they portray sex in a very like in a very like I don't know how to describe it, like in a very like static way, in a very like mono way. Like it doesn't have any personality to any of the sex scenes, where this movie has a little more livelihood to it. This movie also has a much bigger budget than the rest of his films.
Definitely.
You saw that.
Yeah. I read it was mostly natural lighting that they used. So I think that probably helped out a lot. I don't know if they did shoot this on film or on digital, probably on digital, but yeah, very interesting stuff. I mean, I applaud the movie for what it was doing. I couldn't vibe with it. You know what I mean? It's very clearly a great movie. There's very clearly a lot of great things in it. I just didn't like it as much initially, but after watching something like Dogtooth and after re-looking at Lobster and Killing Me with Sacred Deer, I think this movie does have a lot to say about what Yorgos represents as a filmmaker. So I appreciate it on that level.
Sure, yeah. And again, you get 10 Oscar nominations.
One win.
Yeah.
Should have won over Green Book. Yeah, should have won over Green Book.
Yeah, man. I mean, Yorgos is definitely a bold.
Should have won Best Film Editing. Should have won Best Film Editing over Green. What won Film Editing?
Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yeah, there's definitely a better edited film than that. I mean, goodness gracious.
I put what's it called? That Vice. I put Vice as my.
Oh, Vice for editing. That's a great one.
Yeah,
that's a great one.
Alex, thank you so much for doing this, man.
Yeah.
Any last words? Cool. Yeah. Last thoughts on Yorgos or the favorite?
I was looking at what he's got next, and it's this movie called Pop 1280.
Oh my god.
I
wonder what that's about.
Yeah,
Proposition 1280. Yeah. Sheriff Nick Corey spends most of his time eating, sleeping, and avoiding trouble. But when Nick is pushed, he begins to kill and convince others to do his killings for him.
Cool.
Yay!
I'm in. Let's go. Let's go. Is this coming out tomorrow?
Is this a Western or?
It comes out February 2019.
Got to be a Western.
2020?
2019.
That's last month.
Wait, what? No.
It says updated 2019.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry.
It's still in pre-production. It might not come until like 2021, 2022.
It's probably going to be an Oscar player next year.
Yeah, I mean, listen, man. Fox Searchlight did a great job marketing The Favorite.
Oh, definitely.
Got him the Oscar attention. The Lobster, a lot of people thought should have got a lot more recognition than it did. It got a screenplay nomination.
Yeah. It's A24.
Yeah, it's A24. They did a good job on that, but
we'll see.
Yeah.
You know what we got to do? I mean, maybe we'll have you back on because you're an A24 guy. Yeah. We got to do like an A24 ranking, bro.
Oh.
Yeah, that's tough. I saw some people doing that on Twitter. And
oh, yeah?
I don't know. That's tough.
Because I got
so many movies, man.
Oh, yeah. Jeez. Holy crap.
Green Room, Free Fire,
Hereditary,
Disaster
Artist, Enemy.
Just saw Gloria Bell this weekend.
Interesting.
Florida Project.
Gloria Bell?
Gloria Bell.
Oh, with Julianne
Moore. Lady Bird. Room.
Moonlight.
First Reformed. Is A24. Under the Skin.
That's a good one.
A Ghost Story. Ex Machina is A24.
Yeah.
Jeez. First Reformed.
Hereditary, obviously. 8th Grade.
8th Grade.
Good Time. Did we see Good Time together?
Nah,
I think
I saw Good Time.
Oh no, I
did see it.
Good movie.
Swiss Army Man.
Swiss Army Man's dope. Moonlight.
We gotta do the song, man, with A24.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here, man.
Yeah,
thank
it was awesome. I'm so happy
for supporting your boy.
Woo.
Thank you for coming in swinging with the sword.
Thank you for having me.
Hopefully I wasn't too mean to Mr. Yorgos Lanthimos. Anyways, guys, let us know in the comments down below. What do you think of Yorgos? What do you think of this conversation? Go to First Cut, the YouTube channel. It's the best way to communicate with us and let us know your thoughts and feelings about this. And man, Alex, I really do appreciate you coming in, for real, man. I've always wanted to have you on, and I really do feel like what I said in the beginning is true, as far as like, hey man, you're on Collider Live, but you gotta be on the mic more, man.
Yeah.
You gotta speak up.
I get a little bit flustered, a little bit nervous back there, but hey,
no worries.
This is a big step forward, and thank you for letting me get that opportunity.
All good, man. RB3, any last words?
No last words from me, except yes, definitely check out First Cut. And we did a great Captain Marvel spoiler in-depth review. That's on the channel. That's really great. We dive into everything, the nitty gritty. Yeah, it's good stuff.
Check it out on First Cut, our YouTube channel. Thank you guys so much for tuning in for the Meaning of Podcast. I am Ace.
This is RB3.
We are peacing out. Peace out, man.